Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Friday's show. Hope you're doing okay. For those in the UK, obviously we're now into lockdown 2, although for many, perhaps in tiers 2 and 3, lockdown has been a thing for a while. So who doesn't need a bit of a shot in the arm? And today we're really grateful and honoured to have Pete Markey with us. I've known Pete for a number of years. He's actually been a sort of an opponent or a competitor when we were in the same sector together. But I'm so delighted to have perhaps one of the most decorated marketers in the UK on the show. So Pete is currently CMO at TSB, which is an enormous role in an enormous company. But he's really, a huge amount of experience in marketing roles. He's worked at British Gas, AA, One-Tel, More Than, RSA, Post Office, Aviva, which is where we were competitors. But he's been, as I said, much decorated. So he's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, the Marketing Academy, and Marketing Society, and won many awards. But I think what's almost a contradiction is how humble Pete is. And he's a very honest and straightforward guy, a genuinely lovely guy. So Pete, we are really delighted to have you on the show. And, I can't think of a better person to sort of lift people's spirits a little bit. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Great. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Yeah, so I'll hand over to you, Ritchie, and you get us started.
Thanks, Mark. And it's so awesome to have you on with us this morning. Thank you so much for taking some time. And I'm sure it's going to be that shot in the arm that we all need. Perhaps not quite the vaccine, but I'm sure many other anecdotes coming your way to everyone who's joined us this morning. Pete, let's kick off with the first question. How's the last couple of months been for you?
I think it's been interesting and challenging, hasn't it, for all of us? And it's been a period of real adaptation. I've never known, I guess, such pace of change and evolution probably in my entire career of my life, really. So it's been, that early period of lockdown, throwing ourselves into working from home, new ways of working, new ways of connecting, coming out of lockdown, doing bits where you're able to reconnect, get together with people, grab that coffee from Costa I've missed for 6 months, and then we'll find ourselves back in lockdown again. But it's been, the constant theme has been change, I think, Ritchie, and just change and adapting and keeping fleet of foot and just riding some of that emotional roller coaster, because it's not been an easy few months, has it? I don't think for any of us.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you on that front. Perhaps talk about some of the highs and lows of what you felt, things that you may take away and keep with you when things perhaps go back to our new normal.
Yeah, so I think in terms of highs, the human spirit of people coming together, both, I think, as we've seen in the country with the likes of the NHS, but also for us as a team, we were able to produce TV ads, new assets, get them out in 2 weeks, find new ways to get stuff done. And as a business, just some of the way and the industry at banks as a whole, actually being able to meet customer needs during a really difficult time, I think has been quite inspiring. So no, I think that's been a real high, the coming togetherness, the spirit of that coming together. I think where would the lows be? I think it's hard. I think when I get a lot of energy by being around people, and I've really missed that human connection. And video calls are great and they go so far, but I was lucky enough to do it. We were filming some TV ads a couple of weeks ago, and just living in a bubble and being with people again for that week. That I genuinely, at the end of the week, I said, this has been one of the best weeks of my life. And I think one of the reasons it was because it was just amazing, the connection with people again, the energy you got from sitting with people and bouncing ideas and being around people, that somehow I think, remote video access and stuff doesn't quite capture that as well. So I've missed the human contact. So that's probably one of the things I'm looking forward to most when we come through this current period.
You talk about best weeks of your life. Is that probably also because you felt like you were on Friends for a week or something?
Yeah, so it leaked about a week or so ago in the Sun and the Mail that we're working with David Swimmer from Friends, and he was great, really great guy to work with. We had quite a build up to this because we were originally supposed to shoot earlier on in the year, so we've been talking to David for quite a while now, but he's just a great guy to have around. And I think you sort of spend the early days kicking yourself thinking that, golly, I grew up watching this guy and watching him be funny and brilliant. But he's lovely, and we were all slightly different bubbles, so interacted with him 2 or 3 times during the week. But what a great guy to work with. And he brings a lot of fun and energy. And I think as he's a director, he's sort of a consummate professional. So he was always looking over for validation on this shot, right? Are you happy? Did we get it just right? Can we try it a slightly different way? So actually, it's quite interesting working with an actor that is also a director, because it gives them a different angle or a different eye on things. But no, I'm pleased to say, for all the David Schwimmer fans out there, he is as lovely in real life as you have seen him portray on screen in some of his many characters.
And now he literally is going to be on a break. You see what I did there? I'm so pleased with myself. So, yeah, we've all been tested in many, many ways, you know, and obviously a very sort of personal experience for everybody. But as a leader, you've got a big team. And so as a leader, what do you think you've learned about yourself as a leader through this roller coaster that we've been on?
I think the biggest part, Mark, has been, and I think that this is almost inherent in every leader, but often I think as leaders, we forget the balance between the day job of the tasks we're all doing and the very human side of us as people and what motivates us, where we get our energy and what we're doing in our lives. And I think those two things have almost perfectly collided during the last sort of 6, 7, 8 months. And I think that's been good. You know, and actually the early days when, you know, particularly when kids couldn't go to school and you'd be doing calls with team members and kids would be wandering around the background and, you know, stuff going on at home, you kind of go, that just became beautifully normal. And I really like that, because this collision of home and work just had to happen. And it was almost nice to see it happen, you know. And I think, so my learning is we deliberately did things like set boundaries around the working day. So said, look, we won't have calls after a certain time in the day, because that's when people want to sit with their kids and have family tea time. Actually, we'll try not to put calls in around a lunch period. So, yeah, and actually just try and set some boundaries so people could create a divide between work and home, because often it was hard to do that. And then, you know, more of a conscious effort to really watch out for each other. So one-to-ones became half about how you're doing, how's the family, and half about the sort of transactional day-to-day, because it was as important to check in, and still is, on people's mental health and well-being and how people are feeling as it is about the next campaign or whatever, you know, we're working on. And that particularly struck me when it's always a danger, isn't it? You know, I'm lucky I live in a house, I have a garden, I have my family at home with me. That's not unique to everyone. You know, I've got people in my team that are maybe in a flat on their own, you know, in quite different situations. So people's energy levels and the people around them are quite different for each of us. So that need to watch out for one another has become more important. So it's certainly, you know, for me, I think that collision between homework has been a good thing. And I think for us as a, you know, broader marketing leadership community, it's made us, I think, far more empathetic and far more supportive probably as a team. Not that we weren't before, but I think it's deepened that level of support from where it was probably a year ago.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning of this amazing career that you've had and are having. That many people sort of fall into marketing. Others knew that was their sort of their chosen path from their earliest years. What was your route into marketing, Pete?
It's an interesting story, Mark. And I've probably not ever told this before, but no, when I went to university to do a degree in corporate communications, I actually wanted to be a journalist or work in broadcasting. And I actually did quite a lot of university radio. I even had my own show on hospital radio. And hospital radio is quite an eye-opener, doing a show on a Sunday. And so I really saw myself in broadcasting. So when I left university, I had a choice, actually, because I looked at going into public relations. I got offered a job in a top PR firm called Conan Wolf, I think still based in London, in Farringdon area. And the chance was go in, do that. I had to go and do a proper interview and a presentation, got selected. And my then girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife of 23 years, was staying on in Southampton. I had this sort of dilemma of, do I stay in Southampton and make this relationship work? Or do I go and do this high-flying career in PR? And I turned the PR job down to stay with my girlfriend, which at the time people thought I was nuts. And so I ended up working in British Gas in the call centre just to earn some money. So I literally finished uni, I turned this big job down, went to work answering phones at British Gas. And actually through my time at British Gas, I just threw myself into working with the PR and comms team. So I used to write articles for Staff magazine. I then was involved in training people on a new billing system. And through that, I was able to apply for a job in marketing. And my first job was as a marketing analyst, analysing the performance of British Gas's campaigns and their sales activity. And that got me into a wider marketing career in British Gas. So interesting, whilst my degree was about marketing, I kind of fell into it by virtue of that time at British Gas. And when I started at British Gas, I genuinely thought this is a summer job. I'll do it for a few months until the next thing sort of comes along. But no, I sort of stayed in Southampton for different reasons, and the career sort of went in a different direction as a result. But I've no regrets. It's been a good move.
I love that. I love that thought that actually, there's, all of us are sort of almost been primed, especially sort of living in London, to kind of follow the career and, to kind of get into the rat race and climb the ladder. And actually, the success that you've had has actually come through almost following something very different, a very different motivation as to how you actually came and did and went in and kind of, started on a different path. And I think that probably is very refreshing for a lot of people out there, and certainly is for me, that actually it doesn't always have to be always about the career. It could be about other things that actually help, and then the career kind of actually, as your perfect demonstration of, comes to life beautifully. Pete, I've got a question from Tim Roberts, and he talks about the notion that you've obviously changed sectors a number of different times. How has that been for you? How were you able to navigate those different sectors? And what advice would you have for people in that area?
Yeah, great question. Really good one. I think for me, there's a danger sometimes in being pigeonholed in certain areas. It doesn't mean don't stay in a job a long time. I mean, I spent 8 years in my initial period of working in insurance, and I love insurance. And I know Mark's doing a brilliant job at Direct Line. It's a great sector to be in. For me, I always saw my career being more about being a marketer who happens to work in certain industries rather than a career professional in a certain sector. So as I say, I found my way into utilities and love that. But the business I worked in, Centrica, didn't just own British Gas, they owned the AA, they owned a telco company, OneTel. So, often you find if you work in a company that is like a group, you can move within that group, which is really effective way, I think, of giving yourself knowledge of different sectors. So from selling, it's always the rock and roll industries I started in, from selling energy cover and British Gas sold this product called kitchen appliance cover, which was CAC for short. So we used to say, how many CAC sales could you make? So the kitchen appliance cover, home electrical cover, then into breakdown cover, then into broadband and mobile, all in the same company. But the move to insurance after that was a really conscious one, to want to work in a different sector that was quite different to utilities, quite different to broadband and mobile. So I've always viewed those moves as being a chance to stretch yourself, plus also, I guess, not be overly typecast. And that's like a description for actors, but I've never wanted to be typecast to going, there's Pete Markey, he's the utilities marketer, or he's the insurance marketer. I want to be good in those areas, but I want to have enough breadth in my career and what I'm doing that I can move between sectors and do slightly different things. And so probably the biggest example of that was moving to Post Office to get retail experience, to go and work in a retail environment with a business with 11,500 outlets, just to have a different, and working retail is quite different. It's a different trading environment. It's a different rhythm. So I'd encourage everyone to look for diversity in their career, but it doesn't mean that staying in a business for a long period is wrong. As I say, my 8 years at Royal Sun Alliance were incredible. I loved it, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. But there are moments when, for me personally, I felt it was right to get different experience and to stretch myself a bit more.
Yeah, I'm just going to loop back one moment to say what a lovely story about you essentially cementing your future life partner through that decision, and you must have accumulated infinite brownie points through that very act. I must say. So you were playing the long game, I guess. So.
I must have been. It was scary though, Mark. I remember I was in a house with 4 other people at the time, and one guy said to me, he said, Pete, you've blown it. You've completely blown your career. And that stays with you. You have a moment of like, what have I done? Although look, it's very easy hindsight, isn't it? You look back and go, all the right choices at the time. It's blooming scary. But, sometimes isn't it a head and heart, isn't it, Mark? And I think there's moments when actually it's right to run with your heart. Maybe your head follows after.
Do you know, that's such a good thing you said out loud there, which is that some decisions are made from the head, some from the heart. And I think actually the process in your own mind of recognizing and registering whether I want to make a head or a heart-based decision often can liberate some of the most toughest life decisions we have. So that would be very helpful for everybody to hear. So you in the rearview mirror, it looks extremely well orchestrated, and I'm sure it was. But are there any times when it didn't go to plan, you had a setback, or felt out of your depth in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been made redundant in my career 3 times. Twice I was happy about, and one that wasn't, desirable. And so if I focus on that one to start with, I had this career at British Gas, and it felt like things were going on the up. I was in the marketing team. I'd then done brand, I'd done digital and direct. And I got offered a job at the AA. And actually, the AA had decided to get into golf, which is slightly odd for a business that fixes cars by the side of the road. But they had this project called Golf England. And the chairman of the AA liked golf. So he did a deal with the English Golf Union to set this entity up to go and basically sell a loyalty scheme into golf clubs. And it was just a train wreck of a project. And I took it for two reasons. One is because I wanted to work in a different sector, but it actually was very near my home. My son had just been born, and it was like great, a 10-minute car ride. I was previously driving like nearly 2 hours each way each day. And so it sort of fitted lifestyle-wise. But the project was just a disaster. It was underfunded. The IT was just pretty awful. And it just hadn't really been thought through. And the whole thing, it eventually took 2 years to unravel, but I was in it a year and got made redundant after that year. And it was very hard. When you're in a business and you're in a project that seemed to fail, I remember then being told I was being made redundant and going for an interview for a job at the AA. And the two people that interviewed me in the first 5 minutes, they looked at my CV and went, "Oh, you were part of that failed golf project. If we'd known that, we wouldn't be interviewing you." And you go, okay, well, that's great, isn't it? So you suddenly get labeled with this project of being something that's failed. So I had this career that felt on the up to a moment of being associated with something that was a complete car crash. And so thankfully, an old boss of mine from British Gas had just moved into OneTel, the telecoms arm. And he heard about what was going on. He gave me a call and said, "Look, talk me through what's happened." And he said, "Look, I can tell from this that this business," and he'd also heard behind the scenes that the project was not good. He said, "Look, come and have a chat, come and have a coffee. I've got some stuff I need to do over here at OneTel that I think you'd be really good at." So I came in, had the interview and got the job there. And he's a guy called Ian L. Mockadam, who's a brilliant guy. And also a guy called Mike Holliday-Williams, who I know, Mark, you've worked with, both of whom brought me into OneTel. And if I'm honest, I owe them so much, because that was a saving moment in my career, which was quite difficult. And the OneTel job really, I guess, rejuvenated me, having felt like I'd failed on that project. So look, do I regret going to AA? No, because I think you learn from all those bits, but it's hard picking yourself up from something that's perceived to have failed. You're learning from it, dusting yourself down and moving on. I'll just give you one other example. I had, and I know, Mark, you and I have talked behind the scenes on this. I had quite a difficult year at Aviva before I joined TSB. It's the only other job I've spent a year in. And I came into Aviva, which is a super business. It's a big global brand, a big insurance brand, but culturally, it just wasn't really working for me. I was involved with a big digital project, a digital garage that there's a lot of tension in the business between the sort of tech part that was trying to disrupt and the core business itself. And that disruption, which was partly intentional, just caused huge friction in the business and huge cultural clashes. And it just was not a place that I enjoyed, working. It wasn't an environment I enjoyed working in. And thankfully, again, when TSB came along, that was exactly the right fit. So I guess two learnings there. One was that how do you pick yourself up from failure? And the second one was, if you're in an environment that you're just not enjoying and a job you're not enjoying, don't feel afraid to press the ejector seat and go and do something else. And that was my big thing at Aviva, is actually, go and do something that you enjoy. Whatever pays the bills is one thing, but find a job where you get out of bed and you're energized and you love it, not one where you go, "Look, this just isn't quite right for me."
Thanks, Pete. That's a perfect example of so many people that Ritchie and I have had the privilege of interviewing, where the career is never a straight line thing. And we, that's I think so important to know. Everyone imagines it's got to be perfect, and as soon as it's imperfect, it's ruined, and that's just so not the case. So through that, you've got an inner steeliness in you. It's evident. Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's a couple of thoughts really. I've got the core same group of close friends I've had probably since my university days. I'm still very close to the people I went to school with. And so the people that have known me the longest know me for me, regardless of what job I do. And it's the same for my family, is my grounding is not in my identity as a CMO or a marketing director of any particular business. And I know it's an odd thing to say, but often our identity gets formed by the jobs we do. And so mine is far more in, I guess, who I am. So I can able to separate the two. And that steeliness therefore comes across, that if you get, whilst those knocks at work are difficult, and look, we can and we do, and I do take stuff personally at times, actually the ability to separate that and say, look, to find some inner peace and go, look, I'm okay, not in an arrogant way, but I'm at peace with myself. And then therefore I can move forwards through all these challenges because of the strength and support I've got around me, even in or outside of a work situation. But that's been formed, I think, Mark, by experiences like the Golf England AA experience of kind of suddenly when your work world is ripped from you, you suddenly have to, and I think we've all felt this a bit in COVID, when our world gets rocked, where are our foundations? Where are our foundations? What are the things you can cling to, the things around you that matter? And I found that in all sorts of ways, but having a good core group of friends and good family, people that care about you, and also people that can be frank and honest with you really matters. And some of that also comes from my kids. I mean, my son's 19, he's trained to be an actor, my daughter's 13. Being frank, they couldn't care what job I do. And they take the mick out of me all the time. And actually that's just brilliant, because there's no room ever, I think, I'm not a fan of egos, but you can never have one when you're constantly being dragged down to earth by your own family, which certainly helps. But I do think it's a combination of that, Mark. And sometimes when you get through it, experiences make you stronger, don't they? I think actually, I like what you said a minute ago. If it was just a straight line, I don't think you develop that steeliness. It's the knocks and how you get back from the knocks that develop that steeliness, because you've then got reference points. And I remember the Aviva experience was hard but easier, because I had reference points of going, I remember when I did this before and I did that. And actually TSB has been great. TSB has almost been like the greatest hits of my career, where you go, oh yeah, I've done that before, I can draw on that. Yeah, done that. Yeah, draw that down. And actually, the longer you go in your career, whilst every new job and opportunity is challenging, there are more and more reference points you can draw off of things or experiences. It's the same when you work with difficult people. You go, I've worked with someone like you before. I remember when I did this and this, and all those things become slightly easier when you have those reference points in mind.
Peter, that's some lovely insights right there, and it's clearly evident that you have, as you demonstrated, sort of an inner peace. But of course, you don't take yourself too seriously either. And as part of that, you wanted to kind of stretch yourself even further and take on the improv stuff that you did, I guess, perhaps this time last year, something around this time when you went on a full-blown production with a number of other CMOs and marketing directors. Why, what, and how did you decide to go into that?
Yeah, it's another bad one, Ritchie, this one. So I was queuing up to buy my annual rail pass at my local station, which is a very boring job if you ever have to do it. And there's a poster on the wall about come and learn improv comedy at the local theatre. And our local theatre, the Archway, is based underneath the archway of the station, so it's literally right there. And I looked and thought, you know what, I'm up for that. And there were a couple of reasons. One is that it had at that point been 10 years since I finished my MBA, and I was sort of in the mode of kind of, right, should I do more learning again, more academic stuff? But I sort of thought no, because the MBA nearly finished me off. And the second reason is because my son's an actor. I didn't want to tread on his toes, but I thought, I've always had a good relationship with him, but how can I build a bridge as he's growing up into his world of doing something that he does, but isn't quite what he does? And so I went for the first lesson and fell in love with it. And improv, for people that don't know, so stand-up is quite different. Stand-up is where you have a routine, you write, you deliver that, and you're on your own, basically. And so you kind of succeed or you don't succeed, based on how good your material is. Whereas with improv, it is all improvised. So you might have techniques you use, but the whole setting of who are you, where are you, who are you talking to, what's this about, is all quite literally made up on the spot. And so I've fallen in love with it, Ritchie, as a craft, because it's about thinking on your feet, but it's also about working with others. It's not a selfish craft, whereas I think stand-up is about you, not that that's selfish, but the spotlight's on you. And improv, the spotlight's on the group of you. And if you're doing a scene and you try and dominate it, then the whole scene fails. So as an example, Ritchie, if you and I were doing a scene together and you said, Pete, it's brilliant being on the beach, and I said, Ritchie, no, it's not, I hate the beach, I've just killed the scene. Whereas Ritchie, if you say, Pete, it's great being on the beach, and I go, yes, and it's so good, Ritchie, because we can have an ice cream and ride a donkey and do the big wheel, suddenly the whole scene opens up. And so actually, working together is really important. So I started to write a couple of articles then, one for Marketing Week, one for Marketing Society, because I'd learned so much, and I found that I was able to apply this sort of spontaneity to the day job. And I was finding, having written that more and more people were talking to about improv. And I thought, well, if I've benefited from it and it's helped my confidence and my spontaneity, what if other CMOs could do the same thing? And so I was able to rope in 9 other CMOs. And in January of this year, we did 8 weeks, so 8 lessons across 8 weeks. And then the 9th week put on a show for comic relief where we raised £30,000 for comic relief. It's all connected to the fantastic Marketing Academy. But it was a very scary process because, you know, as I say, on that 9th week, apart from me, for all the other 9 CMOs, they'd never done improv, you know, just a couple of months before. And suddenly we're putting on a show, 120, 130 odd people in the performance. But the bit I loved most, it was great getting to know comic relief. It was great to raise the money. But what I loved was the learning journey of seeing what happened to people through the process, and people saying, actually, I feel happier because I'm doing this. And it's giving me different things to talk about at home, or, you know, and that whole journey and experience for people was amazing. And we've become a very close-knit group. We've got our own WhatsApp group, and the people who were part of this journey are very, very good friends of mine now. And that's part of the beauty, I think, of improv. And so I'll give you just one final anecdote, Ritchie, that we had one lesson. I thought the group would bond in about 4 weeks. I thought I'd give it time, you know. Walked away from lesson 1, bearing in mind, most of these people had never met before, walking out of McCann, where we did the lessons, and McCann's old office, and people talking to one another going, that was so good. I feel like I've known you for years. And actually what's funny is they barely had no conversation about what job do you do, where do you live, what do you do, etc. It was all about having fun, laughing with each other, and learning a common skill. So there's a lot to be said for that, to build confidence and build connection relationships. So I know it won't be everyone's cup of tea, but if you want to learn something new, improv comedy is a beautiful skill. And actually there are a lot of these fantastic theatre groups who are doing this online at the moment. So Dingbats Improv, who I'm involved with, do lessons every Monday night. It's only £5. It's online. It's on Zoom if people are interested. And there are other courses like that. There's the May Days down in Brighton. So if people are interested, it's just a great skill to have. I've also found, Ritchie, that it's something people have wanted to talk to me about because it's different and because it's interesting and because for a lot of people it's quite scary. But you know, look, I think doing something scary is not a bad thing. I think all these things stretch you and help your development journey.
So Pete, I never thought of it like that. Stand-up is potentially quite a sort of a negative, a yes but, whereas improv is more of a yes and so it seems so uplifting in a way. I was at the show that you did. It's absolutely brilliant. All credit to you. And I would also remember it for another thing. That was the first time when I was pre-lockdown, where I met somebody and they wouldn't shake my hand because of this COVID thing was coming. I remember thinking, weirdo. You know what you, and then look where we are. We haven't been in an office for 7 months. So anyway, they were ahead of me. We've got a really good question from Richard Brown. Hi Richard, long time no see. Hi Pete, do you think that increased empathy and concern you talked about in relation to your team over the year has made you all better marketers? Maybe more seeing your targets as people rather than customers.
Well, that's a great question, Richard. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I guess the journey sort of flowed together, really. So what they sort of flowed on top of each other rather than one leading to the other. So at that same time, as I was describing earlier on, our marketing was shifting gear to focus far more on helping customers. Not that we weren't before, but when you've got quite a big acquisition gear that you're driving, to shift that completely into customer support was quite a move for the team. So we weren't unique in this, but we filmed ads in people's homes using our staff. We didn't do it on Zoom. We sent high quality camera equipment in. There was a director the other side of the screen directing people. And also just, we use social listening and research to determine the key themes of what to talk to customers about. And that involved letters, emails, SMS. We launched this chat facility, TSB Smart Agent Online. We put our 3 ads in rotation out there as well with our TSB colleagues front and center stage. And we did see a big positive shift in trust and empathy scores as a result. So I think it was the 2 things overlapping. I think for that whole period, we've become that way, but also our communications have shifted gear in that direction more as well, and more and more towards customer support, which I think particularly through that early part of lockdown was so key and remains key now.
That's great. That's a great thinking there, Pete. I actually want to turn the conversation a little bit towards sort of what people are saying is the lost generation now in these current times. And, I see it completely tragic that a lot of young people have either had their opportunities pulled from under the carpet, or actually those opportunities just disappear in its entirety. And I wanted to get your thoughts on, if you were giving advice to young people today about forging ahead in a career in these times, especially with this sort of, this clearly virtual thing that's happening. What kind of things would you say to them?
Yeah, I'm with you, Ritchie. I share that concern. I mean, we've just got involved with the Marketing Academy Foundation, who bring people from difficult, challenging backgrounds into marketing. So we're going to have 2 apprentices starting in the TSB team from January. And if people don't know about the Marketing Academy Foundation, find out about it, because it's just a great way of getting people into marketing. I still think marketing is a brilliant career to get into, particularly because there are so many ways into it, whether it's the creative industry side or even media and data now. So I think I'd find your sweet spot of the thing you're most interested in and double down on it at the moment. I think for me, the area that excites me most in the industry is about data, digital analytics, but it doesn't mean that's exclusively what it's about. There's still a huge need for great research professionals, great experts in brand, creative and strategy more important, I think, than ever. So advice would be double down on it, but look for those roles, look for those opportunities that, again, are going to stretch you and give you breadth in your career. So get really good at what you do, but look for those opportunities where you can learn in other ways around the business. The best marketers I've worked with are incredibly curious at whatever level they are about the business they're in. And look for opportunities to learn and get involved with projects. And, I talk a lot to my own team about ripping up your job description. And by that, I mean, not to be disrespectful, but don't, often I think job descriptions are seen as people draw a thick black line with a Sharpie around it and go, I do this job and that's it. I think it's really dangerous. My view is that's a guardrail. So yeah, that's what you're doing. But ultimately, where else can you add value? What other impact can you have in a business? What other opportunities can you make, both to expand your career but make your mark on the business? So I'll share a slightly silly story from my time at British Gas. But I'd gone into British Gas. I was a junior analyst in the business. I was working in the head office in Staines on London Road at the time. And I was working very closely with the internal comms team, so we sat next to each other. And we just launched a credit card called the Goldfish card. And so the comms director approached me and said, look, Pete, we've got the leaders conference tomorrow. The top 150 leaders in British Gas from across the UK are together. And I need someone to dress up as a goldfish to run into the room and shout the Goldfish cards launched, and you hand out flyers, high five people and run out the room again. And I thought, this is nuts. And I thought, I'm going to do this. So I dressed up as a life-size goldfish with orange tights and big orange shoes and went and did it. And it was nuts, and people thought I was nuts. But for the next 6 months after that, people kept coming up to me in the canteen and going, are you the goldfish guy? And oddly, it sort of put me on the map. And I just use that as a silly story. But I say, look for your goldfish moment. What are those kind of funny little moments in your career where people ask you to do something that's maybe a little bit out of the ordinary or outside the day job, or opportunities you can find to kind of expand your career, work in other areas, push yourself. I'd look for those. And then finally, I think on this one, Ritchie, back to things like the improv comedy, is what other learning can you bring outside of work? And it may be qualifications, CIM, Mark Ritson's mini MBA in marketing is superb, but other things, other crafts you can bring that help to grow you as a person. And don't stop learning.
I just want to pick up on something that, clearly what you've been able to achieve besides a stellar career is also been able to pick up on some really great personal branding opportunities. And the Goldfish one epitomizes that, quite frankly, because it's given, and I guess that's what marketing marketing is all about, right? It's that standout, it's that creativity, putting yourself in the shoes of perhaps where other people wouldn't go. So do you have any sort of hints, tips around, say, personal branding, standing out, and perhaps even guerrilla ways of being able to navigate yourself into organizations and situations that perhaps a formal job application would never give you?
Yeah, I think you should have a narrative about who you are and what you do and the role of the team you're in as well. And that's really important in any marketing team, any business. And that's not an arrogant way. I mean, I've worked with people that are, being frank, I've worked with people that are arrogant, who sort of, big about, look at me. This is not what we're describing here, Rich, is it? I think this is about, I think if you get in a business and you do a really good job, don't feel afraid to talk about that good job. So I'll give you an example, right? So, with any boss I've worked with, I could go and present to a boss and go, try and put the spotlight on me. What I tend to do is go, I want to talk to you about this project and the results. Yeah. Now, often that's also as much about the team. So right now, I'd also bring team members and go, let them present it, let them get the spotlight on them and get the credit for the work they've done. But it's about finding those moments to talk up, what you're doing, obviously you can only do that if you've got good results. So step one is go in and be amazing, and then talk about what you've done that's amazing in a way that focuses on the work, not on you, if that's a good way of describing it. But often we forget those opportunities, and we just end up on this sort of hamster wheel in work of just getting stuff done and forgetting to stop, look back, celebrate, and go, well, let's talk about that. So having this narrative is really important. Is what are the things that you're known for? And I think a lot when I look at people's CVs or LinkedIn profiles, any role you're in, I would look at any role you're in and go, when I leave this job, it's an odd thing saying, when I look back on what I've done, what are the things I want to have achieved, and how do I do that? What campaigns do I want to launch? What metrics do I want to shift? What things can I personally have owned? What things can I have owned as a team? What things can I have delivered? And then be very conscious about how you do that, and be conscious about finding opportunities to communicate that and to put that message forwards. And the other bit, I think, particularly when you get into marketing leadership role, is one thing that's really helped in TSB is having a really clear narrative about where's the team going. And I had a one-to-one with our CEO quite recently, and she was playing that narrative back to me. And actually, that was so good. When you get someone who can play the marketing team narrative back, go, oh, I know that because we've talked about that. That's really good. And having that narrative is really important. So, marketing is seen as adding that value to the business. I know there's something Mark does brilliantly at Direct Line is, what value is marketing doing? What's journeys marketing is on? And what are you personally doing? What the team doing? And everyone knowing that's really important. Otherwise, people aren't going to sort of second guess this, aren't going to know it. No one's a mind reader. So I think having that narrative is really key. And marketing is probably an overused expression, but often we're so focused on the external market, we forget to promote the benefit or value of the function we're in and the discipline we're in, and what value that can bring to a business.
Pete, I'm interested to know what you'd say if I asked, what's it like to work for Pete Markey?
I hope, and some of this I can say by 360 feedback, it's certainly high energy. There's a pace to it, and we get stuff done, but also a lot of fun as well. We spend more time with the people we work with, maybe different this year, I guess, but more time usually with the people we work with than our nearest and dearest. And therefore, actually, I want people to be in a fun environment. It will be challenging. At times, it will be tough and busy, but I want people to feel energized, enjoy, and be in an environment where they have fun doing it. But also, as I say, one that is stretching for them and a chance for them to develop as well. And I want people to, I hope people feel really proud about the job they're doing and the impact they're making. And I know empowerment is probably a very overused word, Mark, but I do, I work in a style that people do feel very empowered. I'm not there to take credit for people's work or do people's jobs for them. I remember the first leadership role I had at British Gas. I started off being just an awful leader where I was micromanaging the couple of people that worked for me, and they politely gave me a verbal slap on that, and that was really necessary because as a leader, you're not there to micromanage the detail. You've got to liberate your people to be brilliant. You're obviously there to help course correct if things aren't quite right or to provide direction strategically. But for me, it's really important that people are liberated to be themselves and also do a job in their way. One of the things I hope people say is I've got a diverse leadership team where they're all quite different, and that's good. And I value that difference of opinion. And people are in my leadership team and the wider team not afraid to speak up. I've got an environment where if you don't agree with something, let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk it through because I haven't got sort of this autonomy on being right all the time. I won't get things right all the time, and I'd rather people came and challenged me over stuff and we worked through it than someone said, this thing's happened and I wish I told you that 3 weeks ago. So it's very open, it's very empowering, it's high energy, it's tough but rewarding, and it's fun. And that's the main environment that I hope people would validate is what we've created, especially at TSB.
Thank you. We've got two key questions coming through that I just want to try and get some of the responses to. First one, and they're quite diverse questions, so try and keep them brief because we're running short on time. So the first one is from Vince Lamprey. Vince, by the way, great to see your name pop up on the show. So the first one is, hi Pete, some great insights and stories. Thank you. Do you find bringing some of your real life experience is helpful when working with people in your team who are facing challenges or struggling to find their direction? So question A, And the next one is from Barney. Barney, lovely to see you as well. So you wrote for Campaign recently about how data and technology are now allowing marketers to do things that they've been wanting to do for 20 plus years. Are we entering a new golden era of marketing?
Great. I'll start with that one first and work my way back to the other one. Yes, I think we are, Ritchie. I think technology platforms like Adobe, Salesforce, Thunderhead, you've got some great technologies now that are properly giving real-time customer experiences. And I'm really excited about where we're going next. I think for the opportunity to create really relevant, real-time connections with customers and communications that are more targeted and more relevant than ever. The caveat to that golden age is that I don't believe in a world where AI is going to take over everything and the craft of a marketer will disappear. And I think the danger, and I saw this happen at Aviva after I left, is that there's a danger when we focus so much on this great world of digital and data, the brand gets forgotten about and everyone obsesses about the funnel and optimization and all those things really matter. But I would never do that to the detriment of the importance of investment in your brand and brand health and investment in the wider customer experience. These are all levers you've got to work together on. So it is a golden age, but it's only a golden age if we don't take the craft of marketing. If we take the craft of marketing and put it in the bin, it's not a golden age just for the sake of data. You've got to, this is about making the craft of marketing sharper and better. So that's the answer to question one. The original question, again, a super question. I think you've got to bring yourself to work and be authentic. I remember early on in my career at British Gas, I got so into being really good at my job. Someone bought me a postcard of C3PO, and I was only a couple of years in my career, and they were being joking, but it's given to you saying you're like a robot. You just you come in, you process and get stuff done. And I really took that to heart and went, you know what? That's a bit crap, isn't it? Being C3PO. I don't want to be a robot. Actually, I've got to be a person. And that really challenged me to go, well, how much more of my, my life and me I'm bringing to work. So look, I think you have to bring your true self to work. You have to be authentic. And actually, people want to work for people. They don't want to work for robots, do they? So I think that's our opportunity to be human every day.
Wonderful, Pete. So many gems, as ever, with the amazing guests that we're very lucky to have on. The time goes by in a flash, far too quick. We could have chatted for a lot longer, but yeah, as I said, so many gems, and lovely to get an insight behind the person behind the career. So much. Thank you so much for having the time for us today.
Right. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Just as a quick outro, next week we have Victoria Fox, CEO of AAR, who help clients to find their edge to achieve growth in creative ways. So many of you will know AAR. Victoria was 20 years agency side. She's on the exec committee of WACL, Women in Advertising Communications in London, and has also been a global champion of women in business by the Financial Times 2 years in a row, which I think is a unique accolade. So Victoria will be another amazing guest. But for now, thank you so much, Pete. It's been a privilege to have you on, and everyone have a great and safe weekend. Thanks for joining.